So I want to see which famous quotes and life mottos would work well for each type. I realized that having just one for each type probably wasn't enough, so most of the types have multiple quotes that I think capture various parts of them. ISTJs. Mistakes are often the greatest teachers. ISTJs are students of history, even if it's just their own history. They seem to innately understand that you can succeed greatly in life, not by having to do something spectacular, but by avoiding making foolish and common mistakes. So when you do make mistakes, to ISTJs, it's unforgivable to not learn from them. The grass is green where you water it. For some types, the new will always hold an allure, a seductive appeal that only increases the more repetition enters their lives. ISTJs are the opposite way for the most part. The known offers them the ability to leverage their consistency and diligence. They can almost be algorithmic in the way they weaponize familiarity. An ISTJ with time and space to excel is virtually unstoppable. ESTJs. Don't be busy. Be productive. ESTJs are completely perplexed by people who are chronically disorganized, or even worse, constantly throwing energy at a problem with nothing to show for it. Everything must be streamlined and systematic. The level of activity that ESTJs display can sometimes mask how lean and energy efficient they are. Successful people do what unsuccessful people are not willing to do. Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. Having a sense of duty is something that ESTJs are known for. What that actually translates into, in practical terms, is simply doing the things that other people don't want to do. Leaning into responsibility when other people shy away from it. That is the secret to their success, and something I've witnessed firsthand. When there's something that you know ought to be done, some kind of paperwork or phone call, ESTJs will just get on with it without complaint or delay. Over the course of time, that adds up in a huge way. ESTPs. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. ESTPs are one of the most, if not the most, pragmatic type. Never prone to romanticizing, falling victim to hopeful delusions, and always concerned with seeing the world as it is, and not how they, or others, would like it to be. They're also simply great at getting what they want out of situations, particularly in negotiations. Those could be literal negotiations, or the ones that we all navigate in our day-to-day lives. A ship in a port is safe, but that is not what ships are built for. ESTPs are built for adventure and excitement in some form or another. Being thrown into, or more often, throwing themselves into, all manner of weird and wild situations is a constant temptation for them. There needs to be some outlet for their endless energy. If they are kept caged up, they will go stir crazy. They need to be out there in the world. ISTPs. You are what you do, not what you say you'll do. For ISTPs, talk is not just cheap, it's considered BS most of the time. Smooth talkers are treated with the suspicion that they deserve, and people will be judged on their actions, not on their bold and hyperbolic claims and aspirations. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. It's not that ISTPs are opposed to planning, but rather they realize that lots of life has more to do with how you adapt and react in the situation itself. They would much rather invest in skills that enable increased adaptability than wasting time on speculating and planning endlessly. They might be the most tactically adept type. They combine an economy of words with a directness of action, making them very powerful when they decide to strike. INFJs. Empathy is about finding echoes of another person in yourself. This quote stood out to me as very instructive about the INFJ brand of empathy. Although they can often display immense insight into other people, it usually comes from them looking first inwards and analyzing the unusual and darker parts of their own personality. From that, often using intuitive jumps, they can extrapolate and make that leap of empathy to understand other people. I think that they are able to entertain all manner of thoughts and feelings without necessarily judging them. Perhaps they would also agree with the notion that there are no bad thoughts, only bad actions. Another quote that would apply is, "Fear is the price of imagination." That applies especially to a type who can get inside the heads of people, well, whose heads you wouldn't want to be in for too long. Sometimes their own empathy can scare them. ENFJs. Be who you needed when you were younger. Something I've seen consistently from ENFJs is this tendency to embody the person that they themselves needed at some point, but for others. They are remarkably good at self-reflecting on their own difficulties and pain, then using that as an empathetic launchpad for how they deal with other people in the world. Perhaps no other type learns emotional lessons and applies that wisdom better than them. Every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. This quote represents ENFJs at their understanding and non-judgmental best. They are rarely black and white when it comes to people, seeing everyone as being flawed in their own ways and being capable of redemption redemption at best, and empathy at least. ENTPs. The master has failed more times than the beginner has even tried. Trial and error, failure, and taking chances are pretty much the only ways to guarantee progress, especially in modern day life. ENTPs are the masters of iteration. To them, it doesn't matter whether the first version of something isn't perfect. They'll take the risk and do the bare minimum required to bring an idea into reality. Or maybe just get someone else to actually make it a real thing. Either way, jumping in and tolerating potential failure is something that they're often willing to do. They're also far more resistant to things like social embarrassment than other types. They can bounce back from those things and laugh at themselves very easily. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. ENTPs have a peculiar affinity for contradictions and paradoxes. They're almost philosophically attached to uncertainty as a guiding principle and take delight in questioning people who state things with absolute authority. This video is sponsored by You're My Type, an app that makes finding friends and dating more meaningful by using personality types to match people. Check it out if you want to connect, chat, and meet with people, or just enjoy the memes. It's available on both iOS and Android and is completely free to download. INTPs. Reason is the first victim of strong emotion. Although it is a stereotype of INTPs, a certain dedication to reason, rationality, and detached logical analysis definitely characterizes them. But as much as it's a love for logic, it's also a fear towards how volatile and disruptive emotions can be, both in others, but also within themselves as well. Few things worry them more than an irrational person being possessed by an emotional swing. Principles only mean something if you stick by them when they are inconvenient. Principles and values are often thought of as coming from arbitrary places, perhaps kind of like traditions. Although principles can indeed be emotional in origin, they can also be derived from logic and analysis. History is littered with examples of famous INTPs who took a principled stand for truth. Some of them paid a huge price for it, some of them changed the world, and more often than not, it was a bittersweet combination of the two. ISFJs. Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny. ISFJs are the masters of experience, rarely failing to learn the lessons of their own past, but also by studying the people around them in their lives, seeing their failures and flaws, then avoiding those themselves. At the end of the game, the king and the pawn go into the same box. ISFJs often see the game playing of other people as quite transparent and foolish. In the end, many of those things lead to nothing, and certainly nothing, in their view, worthwhile. ESFJs. If more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world. ESFJs are promoters and creators of good vibes in all forms, either by being connectors of people or the hosts themselves. They're probably likely to have a money is for spending on enjoyable things kind of mindset. I think they're underrated when it comes to being a fun-loving type who will always find a way to bring enjoyment and joy to a situation. They might also resonate with the notion that the best way to cheer yourself is to try to cheer someone else up. ENTJs. Vision without action is just a daydream. One thing that makes ENTJs unique is their ability to combine two seemingly opposing forces, a visionary nature with an action-oriented mindset. They will measure success by how much they get done. They can be productivity and achievement-focused machines. Because their North Star is results, their plans and schemes are often focused around that. In some ways, they're a type that is cursed to get things done, and they have to come up with goals in order to fulfill that need and desire. I shall either find a way or make one. When ENTJs latch onto a goal, they tend to go into relentless powerhouse mode. The great Carthaginian general Hannibal displayed this unstoppable force of nature quality on many occasions, continually winning battles against tremendous odds. INTJs. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. A sense of purpose is always desirable for any person and type, but for a relentlessly planful and future-focused type, a vision, be that grand and all-encompassing, or very straightforward and day-to-day, provides a focal point around which they can coordinate their action. I can calculate the motion of heavenly bodies, but not the madness of people. INTJs are simultaneously viewed as being aliens, whilst often seeing other people as confusing to the point of being a different species. ISFPs. It is better to fail in originality than to succeed in imitation. For types who don't value authenticity in this same way or to this same degree, it can be difficult to understand certain decisions decisions that ISFPs make. It's not simply about living in line with your values, although that is a big part of it. It's about achieving a certain state of being. If an ISFP had a career or job that by all conventional metrics was highly desirable and gave them tangible and measurable benefits, if they didn't click with it and connect with it on that level, it would feel fundamentally empty and hollow and barren. So it's essential for them to find that kind of synergy in their life. It's not always possible to align your career and job with something you feel that way about, but you will definitely see it in their hobbies and interests in that case. ESFPs. We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated. Mental toughness is not something that people typically associate with ESFPs, but they should. Perhaps the most crucial aspect of mental toughness is the ability to bounce back from adversity and setbacks. Ruminating, looking back, and dwelling are the killers of motivation and energy, and ESFPs rarely make that mistake. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. ESFPs are people who go for what they want. It's simple, but endlessly effective, and also chronically ignored by people who would rather dream and fantasize. ESFPs take an action above everything approach to life, and given enough time, it almost always wins. ENFPs. Always be on the lookout for the presence of wonder. ENFPs of all ages have a childlike and youthful quality to them. Despite the fact that they can also be dark in many ways, that sense of wonder towards the world never seems to leave them. They are eternally playful. Leave the roads, take the trails. ENFPs are some complex blend of idiosyncratic, eccentric, and iconoclastic. They want to live an original life, whether that's forging their own path or simply taking an oppositional stance when it comes to all things normal and mainstream. INFPs. It's okay to live a life that others don't understand. Being misunderstood misfits is not something that will be new to INFPs, but there are times where it can be especially isolating. The temptation then is to compromise your individuality, to meet people or society halfway, to start justifying yourself and your decisions. This is almost always a mistake for them. Those who don't believe in magic will never find it. Sometimes something needs to be believed to be seen. INFPs can find, if not exist, in the world between the cracks. I've always seen the wardrobe in Narnia as a suitable metaphor for the imagination of INFPs. Something simple, mundane, day-to-day, and overlooked can become just about anything. At this point, my life motto is please like and subscribe. It makes a big difference to this video individually, but also to the channel overall. Also feel free to check out the links in the description of the video, including our Discord server, which I would highly recommend joining.